Okay, we have to deal with this left-wing scam artist, Harper O'Connor. Guys are naturally leaving the left wing because the left wing is feminist controlled, and therefore they're used and abused there. So they're leaving the left wing and running to the right wing in a desperate hopes that they'll find respect there. Of course, since Harper is going to advocate for booting the feminist out, all he can do is try to scam men to come back in. Let's deal with this.
Shows something no one on the left wants to admit. Over the past 5 years, young men have swung hard to the right. And wherever you look, Europe, Latin.
And notice the idea, what he's showing on screen, it's all negative, right? It's all negative. So the right wing is bad. So, what he's saying is these guys who have potential to be good, they're not good because they're born male, but they have this potential to be good, and it's all being squandered on the evil right.
In America, Asia, the pattern is the same. But here's the part almost everyone gets wrong.
Worldwide, exactly. Women's hostility to men is worldwide. Good point, Connor.
If the left wants young men back, it can't treat them like a demographic to manage. We need to build a movement where...
See how the propaganda goes? The left wing can't abuse them and use them. That's how you voice it. That's the actual framing.
Masculinity is actually useful. This video is about the crisis.
There you go. Masculinity is useful. You're useful, guys. We could use you. But if you have no use, you're going to be discarded because we don't value your humanity. That's what this guy has just admitted.
Facing modern men. Why the right exploited it, how the left failed to, and what...
No, this isn't modern. This has been going on since time immemorial. It's always been like this.
What a genuine vision for left-wing masculinity could look like. Because this is deeper than politics. This is about...
This is why, by the way, guys, we reject the term masculinity in the pro-male collective. All it is a slave collar to keep us grinding for people who don't even respect us.
Meaning. This video is sponsored by Surfshark VPN. So what exactly do I mean when I say young men are going through a crisis? Fundamentally, this is a crisis of meaning, a crisis...
No, they're not going through a crisis. They're being attacked for being men. That's the accurate framing, everyone. By calling it a crisis, he's basically saying your victimhood is your own fault. It's victim blaming.
It is causing more and more young men to become stunted, isolated, and vulnerable to antisocial ideologies. I'll give you an example. Imagine
we're stunted. How are we stunted? We're not gaining education and becoming high status and serving women. But then the feminists at the group, they're the ones that are engineering that. Right? Men aren't stunted, though. Our humanity isn't attacked. Right? But our status is being attacked by the women in the left wing. They're to blame.
Imagine you're an American factory worker during World War II. You'd have the sense that you were part of a national project, that you were defending freedom and democracy. And
really? Freedom and democracy, right, by doing this drudgery job, right. What he means to say is there's this other group of men, these foreign men, they're the bad guys. We have to fight them. See, women don't just love us for ourselves. So we have to pay in blood. And since we don't want to sacrifice our own, we got to find another group of men to sacrifice. We have to sacrifice blood at the altar of female worship.
Some way. Fast forward to present day, and you are now working in an Amazon fulfillment center. Question: are you better off? Now, on one hand,
they're both jobs that are drudgery, so why not? What's the difference?
You have access to goods and services that your ancestors couldn't even dream of. You have limitless entertainment and the ability to gamble on nearly everything at your fingertips. But
In other words, men actually have better lives. It's just that because men value women so much, overmuch, that being rejected by them makes us dissatisfied. There's absolutely no reason to be dissatisfied.
on the other hand, do you have purpose? I would argue, in that regard, you are much poorer than your 20th century counterpart. Your ability
Dude, since women don't need purpose, purpose in the regard that you're speaking isn't necessary. When he says purpose, guys, it's a euphemism for being accepted by women.
to find meaning in your work, to locate and contribute to a community, to start a family, or otherwise develop the next generation.
Those are all euphemisms for getting the girl. Community, children, purpose, it's about getting the woman.
Has been greatly diminished. So how did we get here? I would argue that modern liberal society has no place for disciplined masculine energy because it does not imagine a future that requires it. If the
Well, there you go, everyone, you see? If you're not required, guys, your humanity means nothing. You have to be useful to be accepted by society. That is what has to change. And he's basically saying, no. We want men as non-humans. That's what he wants.
grand horizon we're moving towards is just smoother consumption, better representation, and endless technocratic tweaks, then masculinity becomes a slightly embarrassing aesthetic at best and a dangerous redundancy at worst.
See, being masculine is embarrassing. And we're dangerous, right? Just like those black guys down the street, they're dangerous. So let's walk across to the other sidewalk. Maybe we'll make some laws to keep them off the sidewalks. See how that works, Harper?
Marx identified capitalism's disruptive power all the way back in the 1840s, by the way. Uninterrupted disturbance of all social conditions. Everlasting uncertainty and agitation distinguished
Capitalism isn't making feminists attack men. So all that he's saying here can be dismissed.
bourgeois epoch from all earlier ones. All that is solid melts into air. All that is holy is profaned. Unlike all previous societies, capitalism thrives on change and disruption. In other words, capitalism is progressive. The question is, what are we progressing towards? Well, towards a world where, to quote Marx again, there is no remaining nexus between man and man than callous cash payment, where the most heavenly ecstasies of religious fervor, of chivalrous enthusiasm, of Philistine sentimentalism are drowned.
Chivalrous, yeah. Chivalry's got to be ditched as well. That's just servitude. Just means working for women, right?
In the icy waters of egotistical calculation, where personal worth is resolved into exchange value.
All this is gibberish, guys. These feminist man-haters are making the left wing intolerable to men. So this is just misdirection on his part.
Of course, the iron law of profit accumulation is corrosive to the civic, religious, familial, and in this case, gender structures that have traditionally oriented people's lives. Now,
he's trying to blame these women hating men on capitalism. And I'm not going to allow that, dude. I'm rejecting that lie you're telling. You're telling a lie, Harper.
Don't get it twisted. These traditional civic, familial, religious structures left a lot to be desired, to put it lightly. Historically, critiquing those structures has been the role of the left. But when you tear down the structures that give purpose to existence, where do you end up?
See, like he's saying they're bad, but we still have to go back to them somehow. So this guy isn't offering anything to guys.
Find yourself in a land of liquid steel and glass. Hear words like sacrifice, honor, discipline are...
Yeah, notice sacrifice, discipline, right? In other words, you got to work. You got to work and you got to sacrifice. But this is only a male issue, according to him, right? The women don't have to be disciplined. They don't have to sacrifice anything. They don't have to have honor. See, they're the true human beings. And he's saying we men aren't. And that's the way he prefers us.
Antiquated. They're floating signifiers. As neoliberalism strips meaning from community and work and traditional roles, the left often accelerated or morally justified this destabilization.
Yeah, but the traditional roles were shit for men. Working for women and killing other men in wars to keep women happy. That's a terrible existence. It has to be rejected by the evolved modern man.
After all, the left is great at critique, great at exposing injustice, but critique is not...
How can you be great at exposing injustice when you are injustice? The young men are leaving because you were unjust.
Construction. And I believe construction is what is needed in this moment. This crisis of meaning, this inability to orient our lives affects everybody. But for young men
these women are rejecting men, right? So what's that got to do with our orientation?
Identity has historically been tied to purpose and function. It can be particularly damaging when the structures that guided their life are disintegrating under their feet. Young men feel this vacuum intuitively because their sense of identity is intimately connected with their masculinity, oftentimes.
With their servitude. Again, that's why the pro-male collective, everyone, rejects the term masculinity. It's just a servant caller. We reject it.
Feeling of listlessness can easily metastasize.
Modernity has no way to channel the desire for heroism. Notice, if heroism was so good, how come both genders don't share it? How come women never care about being heroes? Because they never have to defend their humanity ever. Heroism, the desire for it, is for us slave boys.
Into resentment or nihilism. And if they can't receive guidance from us, then they look elsewhere. As you can probably tell, I'm traveling right now. And as I was researching for this video, I ran into a surprisingly annoying...
You're showing off status. You know, that's what the girls go for, status. So you're saying, I have the money to travel, guys.
Annoying problem. A lot of the content that I wanted to watch is not available in the country.
Okay, we'll get past this. He's just, there we are. Get past his advert. Remember, this guy's a scam artist. He wouldn't need any adverts if he was actually talking about something that was really important to him.
Enter the red pill. Once you understand the crisis of meaning that late-stage capitalist society produces, you start to understand where Andrew Tate and the rest of the much-maligned manosphere draw their power from.
Here's the group of bad guys to blame. Feminist women are bringing hostility to the left group, and we will blame another group of men. In this case, the red pillers, right?
So how should we think about the red pill? The typical narrative is that these evil influencers came along and...
Why would I think about them at all? That has nothing to do with what's going on here.
Corrupted the youth. I don't think that's entirely accurate. These guys might not be paragons of virtue, but they're not exactly the villains of this story either. They're more like the foil.
But you're making them that. See, the foil, right?
Foil. In a literary context, the foil is a character who contrasts with the protagonist.
See, guys, you're not the villains. You're just the villains.
In order to highlight or differentiate certain characteristics that the protagonist has. In this case, seeing how the red pill has electrified young men really throws the failures of the left into stark relief. The red pill is a natural reaction to the hollowness of modernity and a left...
You mean the rejection of women and the abuse of women?
That has failed to chart a path out of it. Now,
I see all kinds of married men that live in very hollow existence, but they're happy because they got the wife.
Let me be clear, the red pill is not morally neutral. It is the path of resentment, contempt, and self-destruction. But dismissing it as
You guys aren't the bad guys, but you're not morally neutral, right?
these guys are just misogynist does not explain why it resonates.
What brings you here today?
Well, I'm hardcore nationalist myself, and
There you go, guys. So not all red pillars, by the way, are nationalist. That's a fact. So he's painting all these guys who say they're the red pill as either scammers or they're white nationalists. Now, this isn't a hit piece to the red pill, is it?
this is the way to awake new generation of Finnish youngsters who can share the same ideals that there should be something else than just pure consumerism and living.
Hey, Finland has a draft for men. It's anti-male, just like the rest of the world. They're not egalitarians, but that's not your issue, is it? It isn't the fact that they have to draft for men only. That's not bad. It's the fact that these guys are joining up other groups. They're not feminist controlled, at least not directly. That's your issue.
In this kind of Netflix global homo society, many young men are ruthless and they
He said homo, so this is more misandry, right? Gay men. Hey, these guys, they don't care about lesbians. It's the gay men that they're after, right?
are angry. They want to be part of some larger extended family.
Yeah, they want women. That's what it is. These men are angry. By the way, men have complete right to be angry. But people use their anger to villainize them.
And I think nationalism is a solution for those guys.
If millions of young men are drawn to something, we should ask, why? What hunger is this feeding? The harsh truth is, Andrew Tate didn't cause young men to shift right. Tate and people like him spoke to frustrations that...
There's no reason for you to ask why anyway. You already know the answer. You've got a bunch of hostile female feminists controlling your group, and you've got to oust them.
young men already had and presented reactionary politics as the solution to that frustration. Meanwhile, almost nobody on the left was in a position to speak to the experience of young men that felt aspirational rather than preachy. And so Tate and company walked away with the whole pie. I'll give you an example of this phenomenon in action.
Well, there you go. There's your critique. There's no point in you even talking about the red pill then. Andrew Tate or any of these guys. The problem lies with you.
I've noticed that a lot of conservative-minded people seem to really hate the term toxic masculinity.
Wow. Men with self-respect don't want to be called toxic because of the way they were born. Kind of like those black guys who don't want to be called the N-word.
Left thinks that men are toxic. You hear this talking point a lot, which on a logical level is silly because toxic is an adjective. The term toxic masculinity implies that there must be a corresponding healthy masculinity. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any need for the word toxic. But that's not how it lands emotionally, because we, the left, have...
Because it's an attack on us. That's why it lands the way it does. It lands properly. Guys recognize it's an attack.
Done a pretty poor job of articulating what this hypothetical healthy or non-toxic masculinity would actually look like.
No, you've done it successfully. You're saying men aren't human. They either be useful to us, and they're supposed to be abused by us too. You've been very successful at explaining yourselves. Now you've got to own it.
Only public language around masculinity is critical. Men internalize the message that masculinity itself is a problem to be managed.
No, you're not critical. You're attacking men. You're abusing men.
If you never articulate what masculinity is for, you can't be surprised when men assume that it's unwanted.
Well, why would it be for anything? You know, masculinity is just supposed to be what we are. It's a state of being, not doing, right? So what you're admitting is that men are either useful or they're discarded. So you don't see your fellow man as human beings.
Oh, because we have failed to articulate new models, the old model retains its appeal. Not because it was perfect, but because it was clear. It told men what their role was. It told young men that their lives are their responsibility, that they can transform themselves through discipline and effort.
But there's no old model. These feminist man-haters are in control of your group, and they're abusing men there. It has nothing to do with these old models. None.
Sort of clarity is powerful, especially in a culture that seems adrift, especially at an age where identity formation is paramount. In short, the red pillars present an easy answer to the malaise of modernity. Reject modernity. Return to tradition. After all, they offer what modernity withholds: identity, initiation, and the promise of becoming formidable.
Initiation has to be dumped by men. Oh, look, guys, right? Initiation. So sword fighting. In other words, it's all about fighting other men. That's the male identity. Shedding blood for your goddess and worshiping them and working for them and denying our own humanity. Thank you for admitting that, O'Connor.
It's seductive, but it's a poison chalice. To paraphrase bell hooks, the first act of violence that patriarchy...
So you're quoting a man-hater. And you used patriarchal terms, the feminist terms. We don't live in a patriarchy. You never did, dude. We live in a matriarchy.
Patriarchy demands of men is that of psychic self-mutilation, that you kill off the emotional parts of yourself.
So this is what bell hooks actually wants for men. So we're living in a matriarchy.
Hardening can win you power within the patriarchal system, but it makes you unable to truly connect with others or with the world. Because when your reality consists of an elaborate hierarchy of dominance and submission, when power is the only language you can truly understand, you cannot truly love. This is the...
Thank you. So that's why you have to kick the feminist out. That's what they've got a hierarchy where they are on top and everyone else is beneath them, and they got to take their abuse. And that's why young men are leaving the left. So the answer is to kick them out. Kick you out, because you're obviously a male feminist.
Faustian bargain, and we need to recognize why people are taking it. Because the red pill is not going away. It's not a glitch in the system. It is a symptom of something much deeper.
He's right about that. That's where he's correct. Remember, the devil uses truths, half-truths, and lies.
Laugh at these guys. We can call them incel, fascist losers. But if we refuse to...
See, you're fascist, guys. If you don't bend the knees to these man-haters, you're fascist. Even though they are the fascist.
Understand them, really understand them, then we're going to lose another generation of young men. So all this begs the obvious question, why has the left been so unsuccessful with young men? Why are we losing young men right now?
You already know the answer, you lying sack.
I think it comes down to this. The right practices what I'd call game acceptance, whereas the left falls into what I call game denial, and neither is enough.
Wow, this is really cool.
Now, by the game, I don't mean some conspiracy. I mean the incentives that shape everyday life. Status, attraction, hierarchy, economic power, competition, reputation. The forces that quietly determine who gets rewarded and who gets ignored.
Yeah, but men can't. We have to deal with it. But we have to put our foot down and say what we will and will not accept. We have to reject anything in the game which doesn't provide for us.
Red pill looks at these incentives and says, you may not like it, but this is how men and women operate. This is how status works. This is how attraction works. Adapt or die. And
well, actually, they're right about that. They do recognize that girls go for status. That's true. But the thing is, the pro-male collective, we say there's no point in trying to attract a woman then. Because it's just an exercise in dehumanization. They're willing to be dehumanized just to get the girl.
Here's the uncomfortable part. A lot of what they describe does truly reflect how people behave
There you go.
under our current incentives. But that doesn't make those incentives just, and it doesn't make them permanent either. The fundamental mistake of the red pill is to...
Well, you're right. It doesn't make them just, but women aren't going to change their stripes. So in that way, it is permanent. Are women going to give up hypergamy? No. So as far as women are concerned, they are permanent. So it's men that have to do the changing.
treat the rules of the game as eternal law. On the other hand, this causes some on the left to make the opposite mistake. Because the current system is unjust, because patriarchy distorts relationships...
No, dude. There is no patriarchy. No one's distorting the relationships. The relationships are being revealed by the feminist in your group. And you have to own that.
Recoil from the entire framework. They avoid talking about hierarchy or competition or sexual dynamics. They act like if we ignore the incentives, they don't exist. You don't like the game, so you refuse to participate. Game denial. This is the proverbial blue pill. Do you see the impasse?
Yeah, but men should be refusing. They should be refusing to circumcise their sons. They should be refusing to be drafted. They should be refusing marriage, which is completely anti-male. That is a proper response.
Now, nobody can acknowledge reality in this situation. The right sees the world as it is, whereas the left sees the world as it should be. Neither of these views are complete. Reality consists of both actuality and potentiality. If the left wants to win, we need to evolve our strategy. At the end of the day, your average disaffected young guy doesn't reject...
You mean kick the feminists like yourselves out? You hate mongers have to be kicked out. That's the only way it can evolve.
Reject the left because he's read Burke or Hayek. He rejects it because it feels scolding, suspicious of strength, spiritually empty, and unable to give him the guidance he craves. We can't blame young men for turning to red pill gurus if we offer...
You see all that nonsense, all that gibberish? No, you people hate these guys and you abuse them. That's what it is.
For them no alternative path and refuse to acknowledge the factors that led them to the red pill in the first place. So there you have it. Game denial, the blue pill, and game acceptance, the red pill, are both dead ends. So what's the alternative? We need a game change mentality.
Yeah, I agree with that. Men have to work politically in a men's rights movement to get rid of things like child support, because that's a slave collar man, to get rid of circumcision, because that's attacking helpless children. We're the ones that have to do it. Not you man-haters. You guys are going to change nothing. You support circumcision.
Change starts by honestly and soberly analyzing the rules that govern social life, the incentives that shape status, competition, and gender dynamics. This is what the red pill tries to do. However, game change doesn't stop there, because once we understand these games, we can work to intentionally redesign and evolve them so that people can embody healthier, more holistic, and expansive forms of masculinity. And
again, that's why we reject it. We don't need the masculinity to be born male. We don't need any of this.
Femininity too, by the way, but that's outside the scope of this video. The question...
Well, no, you aren't including femininity. Women are accepted for who they are. They don't have to be useful. They don't have to sacrifice. They don't need discipline. They don't need any of those traits. That's for us servants. You're leaving them out because you can't include them anyway.
The question isn't whether masculinity is good. The question is, what kind of masculinity does our current incentive structure produce? And then we can talk about what kind we want them to produce. We're not getting out of this by denying that masculinity exists, and we're certainly not getting out of this by retreating to some pre-modern concept.
I can deny it. I don't want your slave collar, dude.
of manhood. We need to do the hard work of constructing a new, better paradigm. I won't pretend to have a finished blueprint, but I do think it's important to initiate this conversation. So if you'll permit me to be bold, I'd like to lay out a provisional sketch.
No, you aren't initiating a conversation. This has been going on in your hate space for decades. There's nothing to talk about. What you're doing now is pushing propaganda. That's what you're doing right now.
For this new form of masculinity.
See, guys, women are just women. But we're not just men. We got to be tied to this some concept of masculinity.
But of course, this question is too big to answer on my own. So I called in some friends.
A good man knows that when a moment of kindness is needed, that they can be tender, and knows that when a moment of violence is needed, that they can be ferocious. We need.
See, it's you're an attack dog. You're not a full-fledged human being. You know, you're just an aggressive animal, and you got to know when to be kind when women want you, and you got to know when to attack other men when women want you.
Need to become men who are no longer afraid of loving or being loved.
Okay, now this is gaslighting. You're just afraid of loving and being loved, right? This is victim blaming 101.
I think that is the answer to being a good man.
The most defining characteristic of a good man is the willingness to learn. Oftentimes, our ego gets into the way of things.
So this is listen and believe. When women speak, you put your ego aside, because that's a part of your humanity, and you just do what they tell you. This is going to be very attractive to men, dudes.
And this is especially true for men. For example,
Look, this would really sell to guys if you said the women are going to love you unconditionally and they're going to be with you and be intimate with you. Notice all the real carrot is gone. Just be our little slaves and know your place.
a man who walks into a boxing gym for the first time believing they are strong.
Boxing gym. He could have used anything, but he used again what? A fighting arena where you fight with other men. Again, it's all about the blood sacrifice for the goddess.
Only to have their egos shattered. They are stubborn and refuse to listen to advice and never are able to improve, and then they quit after a week. It becomes impossible when you are unable to humble yourself before others.
Yeah, men have to humble themselves towards women. We're not their equals, right? We're beneath them. This is what this guy is saying.
And the ability to really do that is the thing that sets really good men apart.
A man needs...
See, a bad man has ego, right? And he doesn't quit something that he recognizes doesn't hold anything for him, right?
to have a passion, something that he cares about and will do anything to protect.
You know,
I hear that bullshit all the time, right? Your passion isn't like for a hobby or friendship or building something, right? It's to protect someone. In other words, serve women.
I think there is like the toxic masculinity, but there is also a righteous masculinity, which is strength and leadership that builds people up, where your aggression is tempered. Those are...
There you go, guys. You're just a bunch of dangerous animals, and you've got to, learn to control yourselves. Right?
The kinds of qualities that turn men into leaders and turn leaders into heroes.
See, leadership is servitude. You have to make the hard decisions, and if your decisions end up blowing up in your face, you've got to, suffer consequences. Leadership isn't for women. They don't have to suffer any of that. They're simply the bosses. They just tell men what to do. But men have to serve as the leaders. The only problem is, dudes, There can only be one leader, everyone else is a follower. So if we're bragging up leadership, you're basically saying most of you guys are going to be guaranteed to fail as men because you're going to be followers.
When I see men who embody these qualities, it is really, really attractive.
See, guys, women are attracted to us, or I should say, women are attracted to us because of themselves. They don't have to be anything. They just have to be female. But we have to be special to be attractive to them. That's why chasing after the opposite sex is not just a dead end, it is destructive.
I teach nonviolent communication at San Quentin Prison. The director of the program has an exercise where she asks the men in the class, what does it mean to be a man? And then
So a woman's asking men, what does it mean to be a man? And nonviolent. In other words, don't raise your voice, don't disagree, know your place.
and after that, she asks, what does it mean to be a human? She points out that the answers to the questions are different. In order to be a good man, we have to be a good person.
See, you're not good. The men aren't good people, right? You got to evolve. You know, only us women are good people because we're only people. We're the only two people. Men are non-people, and they have to learn to be people and earn their right to be called people. But not only is that unjust on its face, but men will never be able to earn that anyway. The hate movement will always hate you.
You just heard from some of the members of Vanguard Studios, a collective I created to bring together politically engaged creators.
So you male feminists created this group that attacks men. Fantastic. Again, if you want the left to be superior to what it is, you would have to leave it. You would have to be booted out.
Interested in growing the left-wing media landscape together. This video wouldn't be possible without their contributions. If you feel like you've got something to say and you'd like to make dope videos with me,
I'm already saying what I need to say. Get on with it.
And the 40+ other creators in this community, click the second link in the description, apply.
Not creators, propagandists.
And we'll chat.
And you, O Lord Apollo, god of the silver bow.
If we're going to change the game, we need to know what kind of man the new rules are meant to produce. Let's get concrete. Strip away the money.
There are no new rules. You haven't introduced, the left wing has not introduced any new rules. That bullshit you just played earlier, those are the rules that you hold men to. Those aren't new.
The aesthetics, the posturing, the cigars. What is masculinity for? In my humble estimation,
It's not for anything, dude. Men just are. We're human beings, not human doings.
There are basically 3 core pillars worth developing. These aren't exclusive to men, by the way. Masculinity is an energy that everyone embodies to some degree.
Hey, guys, this isn't about us mere mortals. This is the new religion. Masculinity is an energy that's everywhere. It's like the Holy Ghost. Since these guys are not going to change their stripes, since they're the ones who need improvement, and they're not going to do that, all they can do is introduce a religious in order to try and scoop these men back up.
It's a yin and yang thing. But for a lot of young men, it's very core to their identity, which of course is why I'm making this video. So let's get into it. Firstly, masculinity means defending the vulnerable.
Really? So are you against circumcision? No. Circumcision is the harm of helpless babies. They're as vulnerable as human beings can possibly get. Feminists are for circumcision. So I know you're not for that.
Energy is at best protective. It cultivates physical, psychological, and moral strength, and then directs that strength outward in service of something beyond the self.
We can't think about ourselves, dude. If they want to attract men to the left, the first thing is they're going to tell us is that you personally don't matter. And you got to serve us. And you got to go outward. What's outward? Well, other men, of course. We got to fight other men.
Every story, both the hero and the villain become powerful. The difference is what they become powerful for. The hero uses their strength to fight for what is good, while the villain uses it to dominate others for their own selfish ends. And
hey, thank you for admitting I'm the hero and you're the villain.
I think we all intrinsically know which one of those we want to be. By the way, this is why firefighters...
Well, I know what you are.
Fighters are considered one of the hottest professions. Of course, if women were rational, they'd prefer the Miami-based looks maxer and crypto day trader. But apparently...
But they do if they succeed. Clavicular is one of these guys. He bought himself a $9 million mansion. He gained all kinds of female attention, more so than any firefighter ever will.
They want a guy who can keep their community safe. C'est la vie. Secondly, masculinity means pursuing a quest. Masculine energy wants an edge to push against, a craft to master, a problem to solve, a mental, physical, artistic frontier to explore. This doesn't have to mean conquest or empire building. This can mean...
What are you talking about? You showed like sword fighters and you talked about boxing. You're all about conquest. The female empire demands constant conquest, constant tribute. The hunger is endless. You either feed the monster or you get eaten.
Starting a project, writing something true, organizing your workplace, training your body. The core emotion here is actually fear. Fear is an indicator that you're on the edge of your skill level, that what you're doing is difficult.
You guys, that's how I want to live my life as a man, in fear.
And meaningful. To find that pocket of flow, to ride the edge of fear, that is courage. Now, it's worth noting that this quest may put you at odds with other people. To some degree...
Yeah, yeah. When you're looking to exploit other men, it might put you at odds with them. Hey, how come the women in your group don't have to ride the wave of fear and put themselves in conflict with other people? How come they're exempt if this is such a fantastic trait to have?
Defying the crowd, blazing your own trail is a prerequisite for heroism. Thirdly, masculinity means leadership.
Oh, by the way, guys, that's conforming to what this guy wants. That's really blazing your own trail, right? The left-wingers want men back, and what they say is that you have to conform. And that's blazing your own trail. You have to conform to our demands.
By leadership, I don't mean barking orders. Quite the opposite. Leadership means taking on the responsibility to serve.
Yeah, servitude. Everything he says is servitude. He said exactly what I claimed about leadership. It's all about servitude.
Others. It means becoming someone other people can rely on.
There you go.
Mentoring the inexperienced, being the steady one in moments of stress.
There you
coordinating.
go. Everything he's saying is just servitude. Something that women don't have to do. That's what leadership is. And I reject it. You can have your slave collar.
A group so that it becomes more than the sum of its parts. A group without a leader is a mob, which is less than the sum of its parts. This is masculinity the way I see it.
Really? Again, so if you're a leader, who are you going to lead? All the men who follow you aren't leaders, so they're not real men, according to you.
And it's open to everybody. Now, each of these pillars has a shadow as well. The protector can become a predator. The man on the quest can easily become narcissistic and detached. The leader...
Yeah, you see, our pets, our attack dogs, they could turn on us, so that's what we're worried about. We got to make sure they're collared tight, right?
Leader can become authoritarian. Underdevelopment of this energy also has its own dangers. When strength is never cultivated, the masculine figure becomes weak and passive, ruled by fear and the opinions of others.
Yeah, men can't be passive. We always got to be working dudes. We always got to be grinding.
Afraid to take a stand and resentful of those who do. And that is the vulnerability that the red pill exploits. It finds men who feel weak, aimless, or invisible and offers them a caricature of strength. If you buy my $300 course and my supplements, you can become the Marlboro man.
Well, dude, you're selling your own spiel terribly. At least the guys you're talking about, they do a better job than you.
But here's the key. Underneath all that crap, there is still a useful core of masculinity that we need to develop. I'm just going to be honest.
We have got to be useful, guys. Masculinity, it's about being useful.
Honest, I resist.
It's not about being human beings or deserving respect or love just for ourselves. It's just usefulness.
Resisted making videos like this for a long time because there's something inherently corny about the whole, like, let me tell you what it means to be a man kind of thing.
Liberal Joe Rogan.
And so even though doing this is frankly a little bit cringe, we got to push through.
It's very cringe, but it's also hostile. It's hostile propaganda. So I take it seriously.
That because there is something essential and real and vital here. There is really an energy that does exist, I think, and that society and individual people would be better off if they could cultivate this energy and relate to it in a more...
See, there's just this masculine energy out there, guys. We got to cultivate it. And this is why young guys are running away from the left. Because there's just this masculine energy out there, and they're not cultivating it.
Productive way. But I think it's important to remember that there's nothing inherently reactionary about wanting to be strong. There's nothing inherently oppressive about wanting to have a mission. There's nothing inherently fascistic about wanting to lead well. If we really...
But there's also nothing fascistic about dumping those either.
Believe in changing the game, and we kind of understand what it means to do that on a deep level, then we need to build a culture where these traits are rewarded in their healthy form. Because only then will this...
Who decides what's the healthy form, though?
Authentic masculinity spontaneously arise at a population level. Protection must outrank domination. Courage must outrank cruelty. Stewardship must out...
Why can't a cowardly man have the right to have the same rights as a cowardly woman? Why can't he be her equal? Women are scared little bitches. Why not men?
Rank ego. That's the kind of masculinity a young man shouldn't have to feel embarrassed about. But all this raises a deeper question. What sort of future would require the cultivation of this deeper form of masculinity? So we've talked about the crisis facing modern men. We've talked about how...
Again, this isn't a crisis. This is your group, your hate movement attacking men. And that's why they're leaving your group.
The right capitalized on it, while the left mostly mocked or ignored it. And we've laid out a vision of masculine energy rooted in protection.
Thank you for admitting that. The left mocked and ignored it. Thank you. So you're the issue. Stop talking about masculinity and other men.
Quest and stewardship. But here's the real question. Why does any of this actually matter? Beyond the need to treat young men as a demographic to be corralled back into some kind of movement. Because without a horizon that demands courage, competence, and responsibility, masculinity feels theatrical. It's an aesthetic. But with that horizon, it becomes essential and natural. And it's important that we...
Of course it's theatrical, because men have to serve. Right? They have to perform. It's a performance.
Get this right, because this is where a lot of left-wing rhetoric sort of subtly misses the mark. It's not that goals like higher GDP...
No. You don't subtly miss a mark. You are against our well-being, and you hit the mark every time. Outwardly.
Better distribution, inclusion, or reduced suffering are bad. They're essential, they're baseline. But They are management goals. They do not demand discipline or excellence or sacrifice or formation. A future that has a...
Wow. Then if they don't demand any of those things, then why are you demanding it of men? Feminists are far right. You are the traditionalist. You keep men in the gender roles that are, frankly, damaging to us. Or at least you're trying. And I am resisting.
Role for masculine energy must do more than redistribute comfort. It must require competence, demand discipline, involve risk.
Notice, guys, he's showing all this, all labor, right? At least he's good enough to show that it's only men doing it, right? So men build society and women leech off it. Right.
Be social, not purely personal, and plausibly fail without human...
Not personal. Don't think of yourselves. And men have no ability to be social. Since women reject men, that's out of their hands. Again, you're victim blaming.
Excellence. If the future does not serve to organize the very best of our energies, masculinity will rot. Because here's the reality. We are living through a civilizational transformation. The systems that...
I agree with that. And I'm offering men an off-ramp to true evolution.
That carried us through the 20th century politically, economically, socially, are starting to break down under the weight of their own complexity. Take climate change. Climate change...
There's nothing complex about your hatred, dude. Your hatred is very simple. That's why young men are rejecting you.
Is not merely an environmental issue. It is a stress test on infrastructure, governance, migration systems, food networks, energy grids, everything. We can respond to this crisis by building walls. We can respond by entrenching ourselves in deeper and deeper levels of surveillance, control, and violence. By viciously upholding inequality in a world where more and more are pushed to the brink. Or we can respond to this crisis by designing resilient cities, building abundant clean energy.
This is all, I'm not going to bother with the rest of this. This is all gibberish. Dude, you're a hate monger. You and your feminist crowd, you're hate mongers. You are the ones who have to internally change, not men. It has nothing to do with structures and building. See, this is all misdirection, all you guys who have left the left wing. These people have nothing but harm to offer men. So all they can do is work their level best to mask it. Put a mask over the hatred. Now, you might actually suck some poor sucker in who then suffers on a mental and spiritual level because of you. And so that's why I'm making this video. Hopefully that guy will see it and I will rescue him from you. You are the villains, period. You are the bad guys. You are bad people. You're the group that needs to be fought against. People have to become aware of it. Men have to become aware of you, what you stand for, admit it publicly, and then start working politically to oust you out of society. We'll end it here.